Welcome to the 13th episode of A Change is a Chance. My name is Ryan Lowe, and it is my goal to educate as many people as possible by interviewing experts who can teach us how to make a difference. Problems like burning fossil fuels too quickly and overfishing are ruining Earth quicker than we are fixing it. So what can we do to get closer and closer to beating the environmental crises we're in? There are extremely effective methods such as boycotting plastic, as seen in Plastic Free July, and beach cleanups with amazing organizations like Sustainable Coastlines Hawaii. There are also ways to live more eco-friendly lifestyles like choosing green alternatives in housing, groceries, and cars. But today, we're going to talk about another critical part of helping the environment, which is the importance of reforestation and creating sustainable food resources for developing countries. We all know that trees produce oxygen while absorbing carbon dioxide, but there is so much more to replanting trees than just eliminating carbon emissions. Forest Planet has plans to build generations of sustainable cultures, so I am pleased to welcome Mr. Hank Dearden, the founder of Forest Planet, to the episode. Hello, Mr. Dearden. Thank you for joining us today. How are you?
Fine, thank you. Thank you very much for having me, Mr. Ryan. I really appreciate being here.
I'm really excited to have you on A Change of the Chance. Your work in the communities you've supported have really opened my eyes. So let's get into the question. I love the line, "Plant trees, plant hope," which is on your website. Can you please tell us what you mean by that? Also, what inspired you to start Forest Planet?
Yes, thank you very much. I'm glad you like that. So, in a lot of ways, life is about creating possibilities. There's very few, if any absolute guarantees. Plant trees, plant hope is a way to play on another saying, which I have, is that if you plant trees, you have soil, and if you have soil, you have options. So just like the title of your podcast, if you change things in a positive manner, there's a good chance that things will end out well, but not always, right? So it's really honestly about the soil and getting soils back to being fertile and supportive of all manner of activity, whether it's agroforestry or forest gardens or permaculture or whatever. And trees are great machines, if you will, for doing that and accomplishing that goal. So if you plant the trees, you just start the cycle going, and all kinds of things can happen in the local community. Certainly habitat can be restored, but also local communities that are under stress can have now a little increased income security, food security. There's ways to make sustainable living off of the trees. And that creates all kinds of possibilities and hope, but rather than kind of a despair that you see around the world. There's a billion people with a B, billion B, in desperate straits. And they're doing things very short term, no long term, knowingly. They need to do things now to feed their families now, so they will cut down trees for firewood because they need the cash, they need the income now. So what we try to do is we create options for these people. We'll compensate them modestly for planting the tree, but then they realize the benefits of the tree. So it's really an economic development thing. As I tell some people, we're an economic development organization masquerading as an environmental one. But if everybody wins, everybody wins, and there's plenty of hope to be spread all around. As for starting Forest Planet, I felt that the world needed to get we needed to get the word out, sort of beyond the environmental communities, which I think is already pretty aware of the importance of trees, but more into the broader community, and communicate that tree planting is effective, it's affordable, it's easy to integrate with regular consumer commercial activity, and it yields rapid results. So speaking to your audience and having chances to help you get that word out to anywhere and everywhere is very much appreciated. So thank you again for having me.
Well, thank you for all your commitment that you've put into your responsibility to the planet. But what you were saying earlier about local communities, that leads into my next question. What has the process of working with the partners and leaders of these villages been like? Was it difficult to get their trust and support?
So yes, it's difficult to get trust and support when you are an outsider anywhere in the world, maybe even more so than in the developing countries. You've seen all kinds of programs and all kinds of ideas and frankly, all kinds of failures and like live with past failures. The good news about my model, if I can back up a little bit to sort of explain things, in the information management era, many times people can just sort of focus on their strengths and possibilities and then perform a very valuable and necessary function without having to do the whole thing. And that is Forest Planet. Now, my personal background is always been in marketing, business development, sales, if you will, basically getting the money, right? So when I started Forest Planet, what I decided to do, there's a phrase called white label or private label. So say you, Ryan, wanted to start selling like an eco-friendly toothpaste, and you come up with your own brand and your own label and your own business model and your own formula, but the actual production of the toothpaste you farm out to some big company that's already making toothpaste. You know what I mean? That way you don't have to build a whole toothpaste factory. Someone else can do it that knows what they're doing. They're already up and running. You don't have to reinvent that wheel. So with Forest Planet, what I first did was I found organizations that were already up on the ground, up and running on the ground locally, had built these relationships over time. Some are like indigenous to your organizations where they just sort of came forth from the local communities themselves. And they're doing a great job. They've been at it for years, tens of millions of trees. And quite frankly, they just need more money. They just need more support because money makes the world go around. I hate to say it, but they need to get the resources. And I go, well, listen, I can do what I do, which is business development and events and engagement and working with corporate brands, generate the funds, and then when I get to critical mass, I'll just send you a check. And they're like, sure. So they love me, and they know what they're doing. So they can spend 90% of their time, or their bandwidth, if you will. And you're from the Bay Area, so I'm sure you know what the word bandwidth is. And focusing on doing what they do best, and I focus on what I do best, and it works out just fine. So to start, there's just two organizations that I'm working with right now, one in Tanzania, one in Madagascar. But I'm looking at a program in Iceland and in Haiti and in Central America and Indonesia. And as we grow, I'll be able to have multiple organizations around the world that we support. So someday I can say that the sun never sets on Forest Planet.
I find it very admirable that you can give these villages the support that they need. There are a lot of tree planting nonprofits out there, but most of them charge much more, but not Forest Planet, which I think is very admirable. What made you make the decision that reforestation should be affordable?
Well, it really sort of depends on what kind of trees you're planting and where. If you're in the developing world, the prices go up by a factor of 10 in some instances, like in the United States or in Europe. That's just the reality. But when you're in the developing world, a dollar goes really, really far. So literally some of the people that we're working with on the ground, on the way through, say in Madagascar, in that country, people live on, they don't make money, but they can survive on like $25 a month. That's their monthly salary, right? Now, that translates back to, on average, what I publish is 15 cents a tree. And my cost could be less per tree or more per tree, but I kind of smooth it out for my corporate partners and make it easy for them to budget. So it's not a moving target. You just say, okay, we're stuck at 15 cents, and then that's it. Now, what this means for Forest Planet is that I have to scale up rapidly to get the volume because my margins aren't great and I've got to keep my overhead low. And we don't have a big fancy office and we don't drive big fancy cars, but we do really want to get the volume up to where we're doing, hundreds of millions of trees a week, or a year, to get to the billions level. And then that's where the margins kick in and everybody should be happy at that point. So, that's our business choice that we're going to kind of take it on the chin, if you will, for the first few years while we get things up and running. There are some organizations who will collect a lot of dollars, money per quote per tree, and then I know that they have incredible margins because then they sub it out to an organization in the developing world for pennies. So it's something to ask if you're going to be donating to an organization. What is the direct cost of the tree?
Could you clarify the varying differences of costs on each of these different trees, such as the mangrove tree?
Well, I mean, what my tree planting partners do for me is they sum it all up. I mean, when you're doing costs on anything like this, you're looking at materials and you're looking at labor, like anything else. Like I said, the labor cost is very low in the developing world. Dollar goes very, very far. A lot of times, these seeds and materials are sourced locally. Nothing's ever imported. You never ship seed again. No one ever ships it. So all the local indigenous species to the U.S. And there, a lot of times, it's labor collecting the seeds, like just going into the forest and climbing up in the trees or collecting the seeds that fall on the ground. The mangrove trees, the papagules, the seeds are in the trees right there. You need to collect them, but you also need to sort them, and you also need to outplant them at the right time. And then there's a lot of labor involved with clearing the field. Don't just throw the papagules into the ground and hope for the best. To really enhance the survivability rates of mangroves, for example, you got to do an awful lot of back-breaking work and climbing around with mud up to your ankles to clear the space for the new generation to go in. So a lot of it's labor, some of it's materials, and then of course there's things like transportation and other overhead costs that could go in the business. You got to factor in.
Well, earlier I brought up the mangrove tree because of the mangrove project. It took only 4 years to transform a barren wasteland into a thriving mangrove forest. What did it take to get that done? Were there any roadblocks during the project execution? And what does this land look like today?
So that project is something that's, again, supporting, that's been up and running for decades. And just a quick background, Western Madagascar is big, right? To give you some idea, it stretches a long way, sort of equivalent distance from Seattle, Washington to San Diego, California, a long way. So imagine that, all of that covered with mangrove trees, which again grow right on the shoreline. And many of them, almost most of them, cut down by the billion, 10 to 11 billion. Cut down. A lot of reasons, most of which are you can build huts out of them because they literally have salt in the wood, and termites don't eat your wood because of the salt. So they fall for forming as lumber. In Madagascar, you need building materials because the population exploded. The organization that I work with there, called Dearden Project, has been doing a beautiful job for many years helping put those back. So they are up to tens of millions. And the photos I think that we have on our website are just an example of areas where trees have been cut down, and you have to clear it. It's a mud flat, and then it's low tide. So you have to clear all that. And you collect the papagules from the healthy trees. And if you do it all right, your survivability rates in some instances can be greater than 100%, which sounds a little crazy. But once you get the system going in the right direction, within 4 or 5 years, more trees are there than what you planted because they've been able to start the regeneration process on their own. You're basically sort of stimulating the natural process and using it at the right point, in the right place and time to get it going. So those photos, it's an ongoing success story. It's been going on for like decades. And again, I'm just sort of helping them out, working with corporate partners and channeling funds and getting that story out because it's a great story, not really being told as well as
Well, I believe that the mangrove tree has many environmental benefits, so it's pretty amazing you were able to get that done.
Yes, so actually there's a great blog post. So the couple of blog posts on my website, there's this thing called blue carbon, where the mangrove tree sequesters more carbon than any other tree on the planet. And what it does is it really sort of absorbs CO2 from the air and it excretes it deep into the mud through its root systems, almost like glue. And I'll call it carbon glue. And if you think of that, it kind of makes sense that it needs to anchor itself because, again, mangroves are on the shore. Tides coming in, tides going out. And they have to live in salt water and they have to live in fresh water. So they kind of have cement shoes, if you will. Okay? So that really sucks a lot of CO2 out of the air, puts it deep into the ground where it's pretty well sequestered. Once carbon is down 5, 10 feet underground, it's not coming out anytime soon, which is what we want. There's too much carbon in the atmosphere. You need back into the soil. What that also then does is it stimulates all kinds of microbial activity because that's a very nutrient-dense environment for all kinds of species that work at the bottom of the marine food chain to thrive. And the other physical attribute is that the root systems of the mangroves are kind of like up on stilts, if you will, multi-legged stilts, almost like a bud. So the tide comes in and comes out. In that little area, little protected area, small species can survive and grow safe from predators. So it's almost like they're the birthplace of many marine species when they're small. When they're big, they start to swim out. So they've seen this time and again where mangrove trees are planted in a particular area, and literally within 3, 6, 9 months, the fish population, the marine population, bounce back of where they all come from. So again, you start at the root system, literally. And then that fish can now, all that marine life, that's now nutritious sustenance for all those, populations that are, again, desperate for some kind of food security. So the populations get a modest compensation, very modest compensation for planting the tree, just enough to get them off the edge of desperation. And it's a little bit of income security. It's reliable, and they can plan their lives around it. And then effectively they get the fish for free. They get that too. So it's a win-win for everybody. Local communities can be sustained. They don't have to sort of say the heck with this and go to a city or increase the density and run for all kinds of urban problems, or become refugees, economic refugees or climate refugees, and that's a big mess too. They can stay where they are because they have the income security and the food security. And as we say, it all starts from the mud. It all goes up from there.
Wow, the mangrove tree must be pretty amazing if it can help all aspects of the ecosystem it's in.
A lot of systems, actually a lot of trees help ecosystems that they're in. Mangrove story, maybe a little bit more than others, but it's one of my favorite stories I'm going to think about as well.
Well, then it's a great thing that you're working on all of them.
Yeah, it's fun. Someday I'll actually get out there and once we get past this pandemic and the travel ban and all that kind of stuff, I'll be able to get out there and plant some trees myself and take the photos and all that. But right now, I'm trusting and relying the people on the ground who have been there for decades and doing a beautiful job. So it's all working well together.
Please tell me when you're going on this expedition, because I would gladly join you on a tree planting mission. What do you think are the most alarming issues right now as it concerns deforestation and the rise in global warming? We hear a lot about Amazon deforestation in the news, but are there other crises that we should also know about? What are ways that you and Forest Planet help to educate and help solve these problems?
Well, there's a lot of them, and I don't even know if I can rank them. Certainly what's going on in the Amazon is horrible. There's lots of people trying to stop deforestation. That's not what we do. We don't try to stop deforestation. We just try to clean up the areas after trees have been cut down and try to put them back. There's so many, and quite frankly, Mr. Ryan, what I do is I kind of just really sort of try to focus on the areas where I'm working. Otherwise, I get too overwhelmed. If that makes sense. Again, personally, I look for projects where the mangroves are going back in, or where there's inland trees, dry deciduous, where there's a really good program and someone's up and running. And I really just try to focus on positive, knowing that there's plenty of negative news out there. I think plenty of people know it's bad and they hear about that it's bad. They don't need to hear about it from me. What they do need to hear is good news, positive news that things are happening and there are successes, and there is hope, and there is projects doing that. And that's pretty much where we focus. I try not to, honestly, I know it's a choice, personal choice. There's just, you can be overwhelmed when you look at all the bad things that are going on. Or you can just decide to really focus and support on the good things that are going on. And that's how I try to live my life.
Would you say that this optimistic outlook helps you in your job?
Absolutely. You'll find just in your job and in your life. I know you're a young man now, but I think in time you'll start to realize that as you go through life, there's experiences and maybe even people who either are supportive and positive and helpful givers, or there are people who are not supportive and are negative. And it's just not really possible to change the latter. You can make a choice about, like the title says, who you want to surround yourselves in and what kind of attitude you want to keep, and really focus on the good, knowing that you're not going to save the world. You don't have to save the world. You just have to do a good job, the best job you think you can do, or a very good job, and keep it positive in that regard. And that keeps you sane and it keeps you healthy. Keeps you healthy, and you just do the best you can, and you hope the others will do, and maybe lead by example, as they say.
Well, I'll surely keep that in mind going forward. Thank you for that.
Do it today. Kids on the playground are giving you a hard time. Goodbye.
Okay. Out of the many projects and partners Forest Planet has, which one are you most proud of?
All of them. So there's lots of different projects that we're supporting, but I'm very proud of a number of corporate partners that have sort of stepped up that did not have to. There's a large healthcare system here, and you can see they decided that they wanted to plant one tree for every one of their 30,000 employees, who have been helping people survive and get through the whole COVID mess. Very proud to be selected by them to be the tree planting partner or the coordinator, if you will, to make that happen. Other businesses that are day in, day out, they plant a tree with every online order. It's just they get up, they do their job, and they send out their products and they sell online, and they plant a tree with that. And it's a few here, and it's a few there, and it adds up. So all of it together, it's all together. And there's plenty of individuals who are my board members and my dear friends who sort of understand what we're trying to do here, and they've been very generous with their time and their funds and their money to make that happen. And then also we produce lots of different types of events, and that involves all kinds of coordination, people sacrificing. So it all has to work together. So sure, I'm proud of this person here and that person there, but there's plenty of pride to go around, and gratitude. Pride is careful. You got to be careful with that word. I'm proud of things that I do personally, but I'm mostly grateful for all the support I've gotten from all the different organizations and people and individuals to help us get this far.
Well, going off of that, I'd like to give a round of applause for all of these amazing organizations and people who have put so much time into these projects.
Yes,
Your actions are greatly appreciated by me.
thank you.
I'm curious about what your daily lifestyle is like. Do you have any eco-friendly habits that you would like to share with the listeners?
I think a lot of it's eco-friendly and sanity. I get up in the morning and I do my stretches, and it calms me down. Less conflict and all that, a little bit of workout. Again, we're a virtual organization. Rarely print the things out, try to keep things as virtual as possible. Personally, since I work out of the house, I can sort of cut down on eating out and all that. So I'll go to the farmers market, patronize those good folks and make healthy meals. Try to compost the excess as much as possible. But then the job is a lot of times just knocking on doors. Sort of comes down to the daily grind. You're calling businesses and say, hey, you want to work with us? You want to try this? Or you're posting something online, or you're going back and forth with a new blog post. It's just setting them up and knocking them down. I'm working with a wonderful communications partner, and she's really brilliant with helping me turn ideas into blog posts, which we then turn into social media outreach, which helps get the word out, which helps get the attention of the corporate partners. So it all works together. Everything's all building on it. So that's my day. Is constantly just sort of building and planting seeds and hoping for a quick turnaround, but knowing that very rarely that happens. You just got to be patient.
Well, I'll try to get into the same habits as you, and I hope all of my listeners do too.
Yes, sir.
So back to Forest Planet. What are some of your long-term goals for the organization?
Someday I would like to have our own in-house program where we've built up a steady stream of revenues and expertise, and then we start to get trees planted under our own brand. We have our own teams in maybe Honduras or somewhere in the United States. I don't know. I'd like to have that. And then also I'd like to have enough funds to do a research institute that focuses on turning semi-arid regions, lands with sandy soil, back into lush and sustainable ecosystems. Basically, reversing desertification. That's a big problem. There's plenty of land out there, but a lot of it's becoming less and less arable, and turning it back into arable soil is a big deal and a big challenge. And I'd like to be part of that.
Well, if more hand is what you're looking for, I would gladly join in your cause.
Okay.
So I really admire the work that you are doing, and I would like to help spread the word the same ways that I hope my listeners do too. How can my listeners help support you?
Sure. So there's plenty of information on our website. It's forestplanet.org. There's the latest section. There's a lot of blog posts there. Read through the blog posts, some about our events, and if some people want to share that information, get the word out, whether it's on Instagram or whatever people feel comfortable doing, that's great. We do have a partnership page. It's forestplanet.org/partnerships. There are businesses there, and people can vote with their dollars. Check that out. If you know a business that wants to sort of green up their act for cheap, then we'd love to talk with them and steer them our way. Whether it's a cousin or a brother, an uncle, or a kid, or whatever you got. It's 15 cents a tree, and that goes a long way. And then our Facebook page is facebook.com/go negative. That refers to carbon neutral is just not good enough anymore. Y'all got to be more carbon negative. We got to extract carbon from the atmosphere. So I'm putting a positive twist on what sounds like a negative thing. So everybody, let's go negative. Kind of a weird thing to say, but go green is a little bit, shop worn, you can tell. And go negative gets people's attention. And that's literally what we need to do. We need to go carbon negative, get the carbon out of the atmosphere and put it back into the ground where it belongs.
Well, I'll be rushing to your website as soon as possible.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Mr. Dearden. I appreciate everything you're doing for the world.
Thank you for having us. We appreciate the time.
Thank you. So, that's it for A Change of the Chance, episode 13. I hope you learned something, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye-bye.